The bride's family looked down on the groom's blind father until they learned about his life.
Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch.
The Grand Hall of Hudson Castle. Flags fluttered, candles burned brightly in the Grand Hall where dazzling crystal chandeliers illuminated a rare and extravagant celebration. Guests from New York politicians, businessmen, and members of the upper class smiled politely as they shook hands and raised chilled glasses of Dom Perignon champagne just served. But amid the luxurious and powerful setting, one man sat quietly in the last row of the hall, a blind old man. His hair was snow white, his neatly pressed suit faded with time. His face was gentle, his posture upright, and his hand rested on a worn wooden cane. No one greeted him. No one paid attention. Julian Harper, the groom's only father. A sophisticated-looking woman with curled blonde hair and a long pearl necklace stared at him, then leaned toward her husband. "Gerald, look at that man. God, he looks like a beggar." The man, Gerald Whitman, father of the bride, adjusted the button on his Brioni suit and smirked. Must be one of the staff. Or some vagrant who wandered in. Who let him into the castle? No, he's not. Eleanor's eyes widened. He's the groom's father. What's his name? Julian, that's it. Gerald scoffed dismissively. Unbelievable. A blind pauper sitting there like that? The wedding of the century, and we have an eyesore like that. Daniel, standing near the stage in a luxurious navy blue wedding suit, heard them. His fists clenched, knuckles turning white. He took a step toward them, but a hand held him back. "Don't cause a scene," a cold voice whispered beside his ear. Claire, the bride, his new wife. Her icy blue eyes stared straight into his, completely devoid of emotion. "It's a happy day. Don't make others ashamed for you." But, Daniel tried to lower his voice. "They're insulting my father." "Let them," Claire turned away. "He can't hear them. He's used to it." Daniel froze. In his eyes, a flame struggled to stay alive. He turned back to look at his father, still sitting in silence, seemingly unaware of the sneers and whispers hurled at him. Nearby, a young man named Alan Peters, Claire's close friend from college, whispered to someone. His mom died when he was little. Dad was a nurse in some rural town. I heard they were so poor he had to drop out of school. And now he's marrying into the Whitman family. The woman beside him lowered her voice. That's quite the social climb. Alan shrugged. Maybe golden opportunity is more accurate. The music suddenly stopped. The wedding ceremony began. The priest stepped up to the podium, voice echoing with blessings. Claire smiled softly, a flawless aristocratic smile. Daniel turned to look at her, his heart tightening. She was beautiful. But cold. Her eyes had never shed a tear for him. And never once offered a true glance toward his father. Daniel's father, Julian, remained silent, hands resting on his lap. After about 10 minutes, he turned his head slightly toward the priest's voice. No one noticed except Daniel. His tears welled up. After the couple exchanged rings and a kiss, the guests all stood and applauded. The grand hall echoed with lively clapping. Some pulled out phones to take photos, exchanging empty compliments. In the crowd, Lucy Whitman, Claire's younger sister, leaned toward Eleanor. "Mom, did you see the way he looked at Claire? Like, he was grateful." "Grateful?" Eleanor smirked. "He should be grateful to this entire family." Lucy giggled, dripping with sarcasm. "If I were him, I wouldn't let my kids see that man. Not good for the genes, Mom." Eleanor waved her hand. "Don't say it out loud. Anyway, he'll be escorted out soon enough." The wedding reception continued in the castle garden, with tables draped in white lace, vases of roses imported from the Netherlands, and hand-painted porcelain dishes from New York. Soft music played. Guests were served Rioja red wine and Michelin 3-star hors d'oeuvres. Daniel sat at the head table, watching his wife's family chat and laugh cheerfully. He forced a smile, forced small talk. But his eyes stayed fixed on his father, who still sat in the garden's far corner where few noticed. A waiter tried to bring him a glass of water but was pulled back. "Don't waste it," Lucy sneered. "Give that to Uncle Ethan's dog instead." Ethan, a distant relative, burst out laughing. "Exactly. What's a blind man going to do with water?" Daniel shot them a fiery glare, but they didn't care. They had power. And he was just Claire's husband. Julian slowly stood, tapping his cane to feel the ground, making his way toward a small stage. No one helped him. No one stopped him. They all waited to see what would happen. He reached the microphone, paused for a moment. Then a warm, deep voice rang out. "May I say a few words? I am Daniel's father." Lucy leapt up and rushed to the stage. She grabbed the microphone with a grin, as if she had just seen a cheap comedy act. "How odd to let a blind man speak, huh? Or are you going to tell us how you go to the bathroom without seeing?" Laughter rippled through the crowd. Most people remained silent, not out of discomfort, but indifference. A blind man. An old man. A stain. Julian stood still, said nothing. He nodded gently, turned around, and walked off the stage. The clack of his cane echoed on the stone floor, swallowed by snickers. Daniel sprang up. Claire grabbed his arm again. "What are you doing? Making it worse? Don't you care?" "There," Daniel's voice cracked. "That's my father." "So what?" Claire replied coldly. "He's used to it. Don't ruin my wedding." Daniel yanked his arm free and hurried toward his father. But Julian had already disappeared, headed toward the garden restrooms. Daniel stopped, eyes blurred with tears. "I'm sorry, Dad," he could only whisper. The post-wedding banquet began as the sun dipped low, casting golden rays through the castle's ancient arches, bathing the white garden chairs in warm light. Guests moved toward the lakeside terrace for the outdoor feast, where long tables stood between towering pine trees. Daniel stood beside the head table, awkwardly shaking hands with guests offering congratulations. Inside, he was breaking. His eyes followed his father Julian, now sitting alone near the far end, under a lantern's gloomy glow, like a shadow in his own mind. A middle-aged man with graying hair approached Daniel. It was Mr. Frederick Allen, a longtime business partner of the Whitman family. "Congratulations, young man," he said, patting Daniel's shoulder. "You've married a diamond." Daniel offered a faint smile. "Thank you, Mr. Frederick." Frederick's gaze swept across the crowd, then paused at Julian. His brow furrowed slightly. "That old man over there, who is he?" "My father," Daniel answered, unable to hide the pride in his voice. Frederick hesitated for a beat, then sighed. "Pity no one introduced me to him. But, oh well. I'll speak to him later." He patted Daniel's shoulder again and walked away without looking back. Daniel watched him leave, his heart sinking. Since morning, had anyone truly wanted to talk to his father? Far off, Julian gently stood, hands tracing his old wooden cane, slowly moving toward the small stage used for speeches. Dylan Martin, the wedding planner, was adjusting the mic and checking the sound. Seeing the blind old man approach, Dylan looked momentarily unsure. "Sir, do you need anything?" "I just want to say a few words to bless my son," Julian's voice was low and kind. Dylan hesitated, glancing around. He knew full well the Whitmans hadn't approved any speech from this man. But in those cloudy, sincere eyes, something made him nod slowly. "All right, but please keep it brief." Julian nodded. His trembling hand found the microphone. The party gradually quieted as the tap of his cane echoed on the wooden stage. Daniel was speaking with a German couple when he heard the mic turn on. He spun around. Excuse me, Julian's voice came slowly. Just a few words. As the groom's father, I wish to bless my son and his new wife. Some people began glancing at each other and murmuring. A scoffing laugh came from Lucy. Oh Lord, him again. Before Julian could continue, Lucy rushed onto the stage. She yanked the mic from his hand, still smiling brightly, but her voice was razor-sharp. Isn't it strange to let a blind man give a speech? Maybe he'll tell us about the last time he saw the sun. Laughter erupted from Lucy's group. Thomas Blake, her cousin, cracked up. Or maybe he'll tell us how he counts stairs with a cane. Daniel was stunned. He moved toward the stage, but once again, Claire stepped in his way. Her voice was gentle but steely. Are you planning to embarrass yourself again? Don't you see, she's humiliating my father. And you want to be a hero? Claire said coldly. It's a happy day. Save that face for another time. Daniel pulled away from her, but she had already turned and was laughing with an elderly guest. On stage, Julian stood frozen. He didn't react. He simply nodded slowly, turned, and stepped down. His cane tapped rhythmically, swallowing every cruel laugh that followed him. Some guests seemed uneasy. Miss Teresa Robbins, a middle-aged woman in a pale pink floral dress, whispered to her husband. I feel sorry for him. Be quiet, don't meddle in rich people's business, her husband, Joaquin, frowned. Daniel stood frozen in the middle of the reception. He saw his father stop near the garden restrooms, quietly leaning against a mossy stone wall. A young waiter named Matthew hesitantly approached him. Would you like some water, sir? Thank you, son, Julian smiled gently. But I'm not thirsty. Matthew bowed his head, hesitating. I'm sorry, for what they said up there. Julian shook his head slightly. It's all right. They just don't understand. Daniel turned and saw Claire laughing with Lucy. They exchanged looks as if what had just happened was nothing more than a comedy skit. He strode quickly toward Lucy. Why? His voice was hoarse. What? Lucy raised an eyebrow. I just saved him time. Who wanted to hear those meaningless words anyway? That's my father. You have no right. I do have the right, Lucy cut him off. This is my house. And him? What is he in the Whitman family? A blind old man with no career, no reputation, no assets. He has dignity. And what does that buy? Shares in the Whitman Group. She laughed aloud. Daniel turned and walked away. Everything seemed to spin part rage, part shame. But above all, it was pain. He went looking for his father. At the end of the pine-lined garden, Julian sat on a stone bench. A stray cat jumped up beside him, rubbing its head against his hand. He chuckled softly. You don't care who I am, do you? Just an old man with a gentle hand. Daniel approached and sat down next to him. Dad. I'm sorry. Julian turned slightly toward his son. Though he couldn't see, he seemed to sense the pain rising in Daniel's breath. For what, son? For not being able to protect you. I don't need protecting, he said with a sad smile. I just need you to live happily. Daniel bowed his head, shoulders trembling. Lucy's words, Claire's silence, the scornful eyes of Gerald and Eleanor, they were like daggers to his chest. They don't know how hard you worked to raise me. They don't need to know, Julian placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You are my son. The most precious thing I have. A long silence followed. Daniel looked up, eyes red. Would you like to come live with me? Leave this place. Julian smiled and shook his head. No, Daniel. Today is your happy day. Don't let me be a burden. I just want to see you smile. Daniel said nothing, gently taking his father's hand. It was thin, calloused, trembling but still strangely warm. In the distance, fireworks began to crackle. Guests turned their attention to the main stage where the newlyweds were preparing for their first waltz. No one noticed the father and son sitting in the shadows. No one cared about the blind father who had just been publicly humiliated. And no one but Daniel heard that soft sigh like a silent farewell to something once sacred, pride. After the opening waltz, Claire left the dance floor, linking arms with Lucy and a few friends as they made their way toward the lounge area by the lake. Daniel remained afar, eyes searching for where his father had been sitting, but the stone bench was now empty. Julian had left, without a word, and no one saw when he did. "Guess he knew his place and made himself scarce," Lucy said, waving a cocktail. "Or maybe he was too ashamed and left on his own," Eleanor added, eyes glued to her phone as she posted wedding photos online. From behind, a sarcastic voice chimed in: Henry Monroe, Lucy's childhood friend. "Claire, do you know what people are saying about my wedding dress?" Claire half joked, adjusting her pearl-trimmed veil. "Nope," Henry lowered his voice, leaning close to her ear, "they're saying the groom is dirt poor, and the only family he brought was a blind old man." Claire stifled a smile, her eyes gleaming with amusement. Lucy laughed out loud. "And he even tried to give a speech. Good thing I stepped in, or we'd have had a tragic sob story." Someone said, Henry continued, "when he was little, he lived in a tin-roof shack outside Hudson Castle. His dad was a lowly nurse, his mom died young, and some nights he had to eat bread dipped in salt water." "Have you ever eaten bread dipped in salt water, Claire?" Lucy mocked, raising her glass for a toast. Claire didn't respond. She sipped her wine. She didn't feel angry. Or pity. Just, distant. Elsewhere in the garden, Daniel sat with Alan, the only old friend he managed to invite to the wedding. "I should go find my dad," Daniel said, twisting his napkin tightly in his hands. "Maybe he's just out for a walk to clear his head," Alan reassured. "But I don't get it, why would Claire let her sister humiliate him like that?" Daniel shook his head, lips pressed tight. That same question was gnawing at him. "Sometimes I think I don't recognize the woman I married." Alan studied him, then hesitated before asking. "You married for love, right?" Daniel nodded, like a machine. But his eyes betrayed him. "At first, it was love," he said slowly. "She was different. Strong, smart. I thought she could bridge the gap between our two worlds. I thought." He couldn't finish. "And now?" Alan asked gently. Daniel shook his head. "Now I'm not sure she even has a heart." Nearby, a group of women chatted animatedly. Mary Ellis, Lucy's close friend, whispered just loud enough for others to hear. "The Whitman girl married a guy with nothing but sad eyes." "Don't forget, those eyes are the legacy of a blind father," another chimed in. "Thank goodness blindness isn't necessarily genetic." "I wouldn't let my kids near someone like that," Mary added. "You never know what poor folks hide behind their sob stories." "I heard he used to care for mental patients in some rural clinic," another woman said. "Creepy." Not far away, Claire heard every word. She didn't react. She simply sat quietly on a velvet-cushioned chair, crossing her legs and sipping red wine. Lucy came over, whispering. "You don't look very happy. Have you seen Daniel?" Claire asked, eyes still fixed on the lake. "Probably off looking for his dad," Lucy shrugged. "Why do you care?" "He's been too quiet." Lucy raised an eyebrow. "Quiet is good. Better than creating a scene on a big day." Claire didn't respond. She recalled the moment Daniel nearly stormed the stage, eyes burning red. She had stopped him just in time. But in that moment, she realized something: Daniel had changed. Something inside him had cracked, something had torn. Night settled in. Lanterns above cast warm golden light. But the air felt strangely cold. Daniel finally found his father. Julian was standing beneath an old grapevine arbor near the auxiliary kitchen, reading lines of Braille from a small book he always carried. "Dad," Daniel called out, his voice raw. Julian turned his head and smiled. "Is that you, son? I'm sorry. For everything." "For what?" "For letting them treat you that way. For not stopping them. You can't stop people from thinking what they want. Just like I can't see the sun," he tapped his cane, "but I still know when it's warm." Daniel choked up. He knelt, taking his father's hand. "Don't leave me, Dad. Don't let them take you anywhere." Julian gently loosened his grip, like a father calming a child. "I'm not leaving. But you need to learn how to stand in a storm without falling." "I'm not afraid of them," Daniel said through clenched teeth. "I'm afraid of losing you." "You won't lose me. Even if I'm not by your side, my heart walks with you." A pause. Daniel whispered. "They said, you used to be a nurse." Julian chuckled softly. "Yeah. At a small clinic, way out in Springfield. Do you think they misunderstood you?" "Whether they did or didn't doesn't matter as much as you understanding me." From a distance, a man in a black suit was watching them. It was Mr. Matthew Barnes, the longtime butler of the Whitman family. He approached slowly, his voice quiet. "Excuse me. I've been instructed." "Instructed what?" Daniel stood abruptly, his tone sharp. Matthew hesitated. "Mr. Gerald asked me to escort Mr. Julian to the guest quarters outside. The room has been prepared." Daniel narrowed his eyes. "Outside New York, is it a nursing home?" Matthew looked away. "I'm just following orders." Julian touched his son's arm, reassuring him. "It's all right. I'll go. A quiet place might be good." Daniel wanted to scream. But instead, he clenched his fist so tight the blood rushed to his face. "I won't let them do this." "Don't fight on your wedding day," Julian said softly. "It'll only hurt you." Daniel stepped back. Everything around him suddenly blurred. On the other side of the garden, Claire stood beside Lucy. She looked toward Daniel, her husband, and the blind man, his father, preparing to leave. No one stepped in. No one said a word. And no one, not even her, could explain the faint ache in her chest. The wedding night took place in a VIP suite at the Silver Pines Lodge, from whose balcony one could see the entire ancient castle where the lavish wedding had just ended. Night winds slipped through the cracked open window, carrying the scent of pine and the chill of a mountain town. Claire stood at the vanity, removing the last pieces of expensive jewelry from her hair. Her wedding dress had been replaced with a pearl-colored satin nightgown, but her eyes remained as cold as the moonlight outside. Daniel walked in from the bathroom, his hair still wet. He looked at his wife. For a moment, he wanted to forget everything that had happened. But the image of his father being humiliated in front of hundreds of guests was hammered into his heart. He sat on the edge of the bed, inhaled deeply. "Claire. I want to talk to you." She glanced at him through the mirror but didn't turn around. "About what?" "About my father." "I thought that was over," her voice dry. "They've already taken him to a decent place." Daniel frowned. "Decent? You mean the nursing home?" Claire turned around, arms crossed. "Yes. Didn't you know? Lucy made the arrangements in advance. It's a good place, full medical care. Better than having him wandering around my house." "My house?" Daniel repeated, emphasizing. "You mean the Savannah mansion?" "Yes. That house belongs to my family. And my father doesn't have the right to live with us." Claire sighed and sat down. "Daniel, do you really think I want to share a living space with a blind old man, dressed in a faded suit, sitting silently like a ghost? Do you know how I feel every time I see him?" You're talking about the man who raised me. The man who never once complained when my mother died, when I lost my scholarship, when the whole world turned its back on me. But that was the past. Claire snapped. What is he now? A man who looked like he walked out of a charity ward, sitting in the middle of an elite wedding, embarrassing everyone. Daniel shot to his feet, pale with anger. My father didn't embarrass anyone. You, your sister, your parents, you're the ones who turned the wedding into a cheap circus. Claire stood too, her voice hissing through clenched teeth. Then why don't you marry him? Take that sacred love and go live with it. Daniel tightened his hands, fighting to stay calm. I don't need you to understand everything. But at the very least, don't expect me to pretend today was normal. Claire stepped closer, staring into his eyes. You're insane. If you think bringing him into our mansion is normal, then you've lost your mind. What if I told you I'm bringing him home? You wouldn't dare. Daniel hesitated for a second, then declared. I will. Claire froze. Then her lips curled into a mocking smile. I suppose, it's better if Lucy speaks with you. 15 minutes later, in the downstairs bar, Lucy sat with her legs crossed, stirring a martini. Daniel approached, his expression blank. I want to talk. Lucy flipped her hair, motioning for the waiter to leave. You here for your dad again? I want him to live with me. I don't need your advice or anyone else's from your family. Lucy chuckled, as if she'd just heard a mildly amusing joke. Daniel, who do you think you're talking to? My brother-in-law? Or a deluded man? I'm Julian's son. And I'm the one taking care of my sister's reputation and the Whitman name. Lucy propped her chin on her hand, eyes sharp as blades. You think letting some blind old man drag himself around our mansion is acceptable? You have no right to interfere. I do, she cut in. When that man isn't worthy of being my sister's father-in-law. I have every right to protect Claire from anything that tarnishes this family's image. Daniel gritted his teeth. He's a human being. A father. The only one from my side who attended this wedding. Don't you feel even a shred of shame? Lucy raised her eyebrows. No. I feel lucky. Lucky he didn't cause a scene. Lucky he didn't trip on the red carpet or drop a wine glass. As for humiliation, don't use such heavy words. It was just truth, spoken out loud. Daniel stepped back, shaking with rage. But then he turned and walked away, saying nothing more. He knew that if he said another word, he'd lose control. Late at night, Daniel returned to the room. Claire was asleep or pretending to be. He quietly stepped out onto the balcony. The lights of Madison glittered in the distance. The wind was cold. Inside him was an emptiness he couldn't name. He picked up his phone and called the nursing home. A mechanical female voice answered, then transferred him to reception. Hello, this is Daniel Harper. I'd like to ask, has my father, Julian Harper, arrived? A brief pause. Yes, he arrived about half an hour ago. May I speak with him? I'm sorry, he requested no visitors. Not even family. Daniel went numb. What do you mean? He knew I would call. I understand, sir. But he was very firm. Please tell him I'm waiting. I'm very sorry. The line went dead. Daniel collapsed into the chair, burying his face in his hands. He didn't know what had changed in Julian. But what he felt most clearly now was that his father had turned not away from him but from the cruel world that had crushed him throughout the ceremony. And he, as a son, hadn't been strong enough to stop it. The next morning, Claire woke and stepped onto the balcony. Daniel had gone out early. She sat in the chair, wrapped in a robe, holding a cup of hot coffee. Lucy called. You okay? Still breathing. Lucy laughed. Don't worry. That nursing home has top medical care. Clean, quiet. No more tapping canes or self-righteous speeches to disturb you. Claire was silent for a moment, then asked. Did Daniel say anything else? No. But trust me, he'll get used to it. And if not, who cares? Claire looked toward the horizon. The sun was rising, blazing gold. But she felt cold. In her mind, for the first time, a question surfaced, one she'd long buried. If he's not the pitiful man my sister claims he is, then who is he? The days following the wedding passed in a strange silence. No family meetings, no inquiries from the Whitmans about Daniel's side. As if the groom's entire family Julian had never existed. The Whitman mansion in Savannah was a grand estate on the edge of town, with high walls, wrought iron gates, and neatly trimmed rose gardens. But to Daniel, it was colder than stone. On their first day living together after the honeymoon, Daniel stated clearly. I will bring my father to live with us. Claire didn't respond. She just looked at him as if he'd suggested setting up a ragged tent in the middle of the living room. That night, Daniel searched through his suitcase for the watch his father gave him on the wedding day and discovered it was gone. Also missing was a small wooden box containing a few keepsakes, the letter his mother wrote before she died, a handkerchief embroidered with Julian, and a photo of the three of them from his childhood. He searched everywhere in the room, then the storage room. Nothing. He went downstairs. Mrs. Helen, the elderly housekeeper from Topeka, stopped when she saw Daniel rifling through a wooden cabinet near the fireplace. Mr. Daniel, sir, are you looking for something? A small brown wooden box. It had photos and a watch. Have you seen it? Helen hesitated. I was instructed to clear out anything unnecessary. Those things were taken away, sir. Taken where? I don't know. Miss Lucy said the donation truck came by yesterday. Daniel stepped back. What do you mean by unnecessary? I was only following orders, sir. He said nothing more. He left the room with a storm of silent fury weighing down his chest like stone. When he asked Claire, she replied coldly. Those things didn't match the house. I asked Lucy to take care of it. You had no right to throw them away. They were trash, Daniel. And if you want to keep those old scraps, go live with them. But don't force other people to look at them every day. Daniel didn't respond. He retreated to the study, the only room in the house with a lock. Since that day, every night, he called the nursing home. No one ever picked up. One afternoon, while Claire was out at the spa with Lucy, Daniel left the house and took a taxi to the nursing home in Brooklyn where his father was staying. The driver, a middle-aged man named Victor Grant with an Andalusian accent, started chatting after learning Daniel was visiting his father. It's been a while since I've seen someone still care about the elderly. I hope you hold on to that heart of yours. Daniel let out a bitter smile. I'm afraid I'm starting to lose it. The car stopped at the iron gates of the facility. Daniel stepped out and went straight to the front desk. The receptionist, Catherine Summers, a woman in her 40s, looked at him and then checked the logbook. Name of the resident you're here to see? Julian Harper. I'm his son. Catherine hesitated. I remember. But. I'm sorry. He requested no visits from any family members. Daniel clenched the strap of his bag. Please, just 5 minutes. I just need to see him. Just for a moment. Catherine looked uncomfortable. I'm really sorry. If I let you in, I'll be penalized. Daniel stepped back. He walked out to the rear garden and sat on a stone bench, his eyes fixed on the 3-story building ahead. Somewhere inside, his father was living, separated from him by just a few walls, yet it felt like an ocean apart. That evening, Daniel returned home. In the dining room, the Whitman family was already seated: Gerald, Eleanor, Lucy, and Claire. Dinner featured truffle mushroom soup, roasted lamb, and French white wine. Daniel entered, and no one even looked up. He sat down and picked up his spoon. Lucy looked at him, smirking slightly. "Out for some fresh air today, brother-in-law?" Daniel said nothing. Eleanor glared at her daughter. "Lucy, that's a tactless thing to say." "I was just being concerned," Lucy said with feigned innocence. Gerald put his wine glass down. "I heard you went to the nursing home." Daniel looked up. "Yes. I hope you're not planning to stir things up again." "I just wanted to see my father." Eleanor sighed. "He made it clear he doesn't want to be disturbed anymore." "Why can't you respect that?" Daniel cut her off. "He didn't reject his son." Lucy chimed in, smirking. "Or maybe, he was too ashamed and cut ties himself." Daniel dropped his spoon and stood up. "You've crossed the line, Lucy." Gerald placed a hand on the table, his voice firm. "Sit down, Daniel. This is my house. Don't raise your voice." Daniel looked around. Every face at the table wore a mix of pride and contempt. He stood there, a stranger in his own life. Claire remained silent, not saying a word. After a minute, Daniel walked out. No dinner. No words. Night fell. Daniel lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was too quiet, too clean, too perfect. Nothing of his past remained except the wedding ring on his finger. He slipped it off. Placed it on the table. Stared at it. Then picked up his phone. And called Alan. "I don't know what to do anymore," Daniel said, his voice hoarse. "You have to be patient. I'm being barred from seeing my own father. They threw away his things. I don't even have a piece of him left. I can't even hear his voice." Alan was silent for a few seconds. "Do you want me to help?" "Help how?" "Come with me to the facility. I know someone from the charity fellowship, someone who has connections there." Daniel exhaled deeply. "Thank you. But I'm not ready to break rules." "Not yet. Then at the very least, don't give up." Daniel nodded, knowing Alan couldn't see it. "I won't. No matter how long it takes." After the call, Daniel opened the closet and looked for the old blue shirt his father had once given him. It was gone. There was nothing left. He sat on the floor, back against the wall. And cried. Silently. No one heard. Only the silence of the mansion, thick as brick walls, surrounded him. The next morning, Daniel woke alone. Claire had left the bed, leaving behind the faint scent of her perfume on the pillow. He got dressed and headed downstairs. In the kitchen, Mrs. Helen, the elderly housekeeper, was pouring tea for Lucy, who was still in silk pajamas, legs draped over a chair. "Good morning, sir," Helen greeted softly. Lucy glanced up. "Oh, the groom's awake. I thought you'd be dreaming of nursing homes." Daniel didn't reply. He poured himself coffee. Helen shot a warning glance, but Lucy continued. "Yesterday Claire said you asked about the ownership of the mansion. How cute. Like a little boy asking, 'Is Daddy's car mine too?' I just want to know," Daniel said slowly, "whether I have the right to bring my father to live here." Lucy burst out laughing. "To live in this house? Daniel, wake up. You married Claire because Gerald accepted you as a compromise. No one signed any paper giving you permission to drag your poor past into this place. I don't need ownership. I need fairness. There's no such thing in this house. Only order. And you're near the bottom of the line." Helen faked a cough to break the tension. Daniel turned and walked away, the coffee growing cold in his hand. But just as he passed the hallway, he saw Gerald emerge from the study. "Daniel," he said, voice low. "Come in. I need to talk to you." The Whitman study was a grand room with walnut-paneled walls, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and an armchair the size of a throne. Gerald sat down, crossing his legs. "I hear you've been asking about ownership." I wasn't questioning it. I just wanted to know if I had the right to decide to live with my father. "Well," Gerald said slowly, "you need to understand something. You are a long-term guest in this house. A guest who brought nothing but a name. I'm Claire's husband." "Then act like it. Marrying her was a miracle for you. But if you think marriage buys trust or status, then I'm sorry it doesn't." Daniel stood still. He knew Gerald was speaking for the entire Whitman family. Every word was a blade pointed at him. "I can move out. I have a job. I can rent my own place. And Claire would go with you." Gerald raised an eyebrow. Daniel stayed silent. "Do you know how many men Claire turned down?" Gerald smirked. "You were chosen because you were easy to shape. No baggage. No legacy. No demands." Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm not something to be controlled." "No, but you are reasonable. And I hope you remain that way." He opened a drawer and placed a file on the table. "This is a lease for an apartment in Topeka. If you need private space to live with your father, my family can sponsor part of it. In return, move out of this mansion. And never bring up the idea of bringing your father here again." Daniel didn't touch the file. He just looked at it like it was a trap. "I need to speak with Claire. Claire doesn't want to be bothered with your emotional inheritance. Let her live in peace." Daniel turned and left the study, head pounding. He rushed upstairs and threw open the bedroom door. Claire was sitting on the bed, laptop in hand. "Did you know about the contract Gerald just offered me?" Claire didn't look up. "I knew. And you agreed?" "Don't you get it?" she said. "I'm living the life I always dreamed of. Beautiful, stable, orderly. I'm not giving that up to live with a blind old man pouring tea in worn-out pajamas." Daniel's voice tightened. "That's my father." Claire set the laptop aside and finally looked at him. "And you're my husband. If you love me, then live up to that role. Don't force me to choose. You don't have to." "You already did," Daniel whispered, turning away. Claire didn't stop him. A week later, Daniel met his close friend John at a cafe in Union Square. A cold wind swept through the plaza, the outdoor tables sparsely occupied. "You look like you've got a mountain on your back," John said, sliding a coffee across to him. "I feel like I'm not myself anymore." "What do you want now?" "A different place. A different life. But I'm stuck in between." John quietly watched him. Then pulled a piece of paper from his bag. "I did some digging. There's a janitor at the nursing home, his name's Eric Brown. He used to be one of your dad's students back when he taught at a community shelter. I have his number." Daniel took the paper, his hand trembling slightly. "Thank you. But don't expect too much. He may still not want to see you." Daniel nodded. "But at least, it's a thread." That evening, back at the mansion, Daniel pulled out his phone and dialed Eric's number. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. "Hello. Hi, this is Daniel Harper. I'm Julian's son. Are you currently working at Valley Hills Retirement Home?" Eric hesitated. I know him. But I'm not allowed to. I'm not asking you to do anything wrong. I just want to know, is he okay?" Eric was silent for a moment, then said. "He doesn't talk much. But he reads Braille regularly. Usually sits in the garden early in the morning. Do you think he resents me?" Eric exhaled. "No. But he has a very sad look in his eyes. Like someone who's gotten used to being forgotten." Daniel gripped the phone tightly. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me. If I can, I'll leave him a letter from you. But I can't guarantee he'll read it. Daniel nodded, knowing Eric couldn't see him. I'll write it. After hanging up, Daniel sat at his desk and took out pen and paper. And for the first time in 2 weeks, he wrote. Not to justify anything. Not to beg for forgiveness. But simply to say, Dad, I have never forgotten you. Even if the whole world turns its back, I'm still here waiting for you to look my way one more time. A week passed since Daniel had sent the letter to his father through Eric. Every morning, he checked his phone, hoping for a message, a call, even just a signal from Valley Hill's retirement home. But all he got was silence. Silence, the most terrifying sound Daniel had ever endured. On the 8th day, he went to the nursing home gate. A new guard, a young man with curly hair named Samuel Nolan, stopped him from afar. Sorry, sir. Mr. Harper has requested not to receive any visitors, including family. Daniel clutched the cold iron gate. Are you sure? I'm his son. I know. But we have clear instructions. The gentleman was very firm. Can you at least tell him I'm outside? I don't even need to see him. Just let him know I came. Samuel shook his head. I can't. If he finds out I didn't respect his request, I could get written up. Daniel took a step back, eyes filled with despair. Then at least, can you tell me if he's doing okay? Still gets up early. Reads Braille. No complaints. Has anyone visited him? No. Just a German volunteer came twice in the beginning. Hasn't returned since. Daniel stood there for a long time. The iron gate was freezing beneath his hand. He didn't know why his father was doing this. Was it shame? Anger? Or had he decided to cut ties with life itself? Samuel looked at him with sympathy. Sir. I think he's still waiting for you. Then why won't you let me in? Because he doesn't want to be seen like this. Daniel nodded. His lips pressed tight. Thank you. Anne, if he ever says my name, please tell him I've never left him. Daniel returned to the mansion. That evening, at dinner, no one mentioned Mr. Julian. Dinner unfolded with the same artificial politeness as always. Claire flipped through magazines, Lucy scrolled on her phone, Eleanor chose the wine, and Gerald discussed the stock market. Daniel sat silently. His fork and knife untouched. Lucy broke the silence. Lovely weather today. I heard the nursing home in Brooklyn has a rather charming garden. Very French-style landscaping. No one replied. Daniel looked up, his eyes fixed on Lucy. Do you enjoy saying things that hurt people? Lucy shrugged. I'm just sharing information. I read somewhere that elderly folks need sunlight to avoid depression. Claire set her magazine down. That's enough, Lucy. Lucy pursed her lips in a smirk. I didn't name anyone. Whoever's offended, that's on them. Daniel placed his silverware down. His voice was hoarse. A whole week has passed, and no one in this house has mentioned him. As if my father never existed. Eleanor frowned. Daniel, we're not heartless. We're just respecting his decision. Respecting? Daniel repeated. You forced him out of the wedding, sent him to a nursing home, threw away his things, and called that respect? Gerald tapped the table lightly. My dear son-in-law, don't drag this entire family into your emotional burden. We all did the right thing. And who decided what's right? You. Claire spoke, her voice tired. Daniel, you turn every meal into a moral interrogation. I'm exhausted. Daniel looked at his wife and said softly. Have you ever wondered why he doesn't want to see anyone anymore? Claire said nothing. Daniel went on. Maybe he's ashamed. Maybe he feels like a burden. Maybe he thinks you didn't want him in your life. Lucy interjected. Or maybe he realized he doesn't belong here. And chose to withdraw. Daniel stood abruptly. His water glass tipped, spilling onto the tablecloth. I don't need this dinner. I need a family. Claire didn't rise. She only murmured. A family doesn't have to include people who make you feel ashamed every day. Daniel walked out. The door slammed behind him, echoing through the cold marble hallway. That night, he sat alone in the study. On the desk were the only pieces of his childhood he had left, a faded copy of his birth certificate, a handkerchief his mother had embroidered with his name, all smuggled away before Claire cleared out Mr. Julian's things. He opened his laptop and searched, Valley Hills retirement home when a loved one refuses to see you. Dozens of articles appeared. One headline made him pause, when a father chooses silence. Some fathers choose silence not because they don't need their children, but because they believe they've hurt them too much. They punish themselves by disappearing. Daniel read the line over and over. Then, for the first time, he wrote an email to himself. Dad, if you ever read this, please know, I was never ashamed of you. I'm only ashamed that I let others hurt you and couldn't stop them. I don't know why you're silent, but I'll wait, until the day you speak to me again. He sent the email. Then sat quietly until dawn. On the 10th day after the wedding, he returned to the facility. No appointment. The gate was still closed. Samuel Nolan was still on duty. You're back again. This time I'm not asking to see him. I just want to stand here for a while. Is that okay? Samuel nodded, looking a bit uneasy. I won't stop you. But, you should know, someone sent flowers to him yesterday. No name. What kind of flowers? White lilies. He said it smelled like the perfume his mother used to wear. Daniel stood still. He asked quietly. Did anyone come in person? No. Sent through a delivery service. What did he say when he got them? Samuel hesitated. Nothing. He just placed the vase beside his bed. And smiled. Daniel lowered his head. For the first time in days, his heart beat with a quiet warmth even if fleeting. He left another letter, asking Samuel to deliver it. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just want you to know, I'm still here. And I'll always be here. Back at the mansion, Daniel discovered the lock to his study had been changed. He asked Helen. The housekeeper bowed slightly. I'm sorry, sir. Miss Lucy requested it. Said there was no need for private locks in the house anymore. Daniel said nothing. He went upstairs. Claire was putting on makeup. You had them change the lock. I don't want secret rooms in this house. What are you hiding? Just pieces of a memory no one wants to see. Then maybe you should store them somewhere else. Daniel looked at her for a long time. Then walked to the vanity. He opened the jewelry box, took out his wedding ring, and placed it inside. Keep it. I don't need it anymore. Claire stared at him but said nothing. Daniel turned away. Left the room. And for the first time since stepping into the Whitman home, he realized his heart no longer belonged there. Somewhere out there, Mr. Julian continued living in his chosen silence. And Daniel was now beginning to choose silence too. On Monday morning, the sky over Boston was covered in a thin mist, and the early sunlight wasn't enough to chase away the crisp chill of April. Claire came down to the living room, her hair pinned up, face bare of makeup. Today, her schedule was empty, a rare occurrence since the wedding. Daniel had moved out 3 days ago, without saying exactly where, leaving only a short message. I need some air. No one in the Whitman household mentioned him. Lucy was delighted. Gerald didn't care. Eleanor pretended nothing had happened. And Claire remained silent. But since he left, Claire hadn't slept well for 3 consecutive nights. As she approached the dining table, Claire noticed an ivory envelope neatly placed beside a cup of chamomile tea. No sender. No stamp. Just one firm, unmistakable handwriting on the front. Claire Whitman. She froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Mrs. Helen. Claire called out loudly. Who put this here? Helen stepped out from the kitchen, still holding a dish towel. I'm not sure, miss, said Mrs. Helen. I came back from the morning market and found the envelope on the table. No one came through the gate. Are you certain? Yes. The gate was still locked. No strangers entered. Claire opened the envelope, her hands slightly trembling. Inside was an old newspaper, carefully folded in half. She spread it out. In the top left corner, it read, The Washington Post, February 12, 2019. On the inside page was a half-page article, its headline printed in large, bold letters. Dr. Julian Harper, the man who donated his corneas to save a young woman after a severe accident. Claire froze. Below the headline was a photo of a man in a white coat, gray streaks in his hair, holding the hand of a young woman whose eyes were covered in bandages. A faint scar was visible on the young woman's forehead. Beneath the photo was the caption. Young woman receives a life-saving corneal transplant thanks to Dr. Harper's urgent donation, a miracle surgery at St. Joseph Medical Center. Claire's head began to spin. She let the newspaper slip from her hands and leaned back in her chair. A memory surged forward, sharp and vivid, like it happened just yesterday. 2 years ago, one early summer afternoon, Claire had been driving from Savannah back to Boston when a truck sideswiped her car. The vehicle spun 3 times, the windshield shattered, and her body slammed against the steering wheel. When she woke up, she was in the emergency room, her eyes tightly bandaged. The doctor said her vision was nearly gone. Her only hope, finding a suitable donor within 48 hours. Claire didn't clearly remember the face of the donor who had given her the corneas. She only remembered that, a few weeks later, in the pile of medical documents, there had been a name underlined in red. Donor, Dr. Julian Harper. Back then, the name meant nothing to her. But now. No, it can't be, Claire whispered, like someone sleepwalking. She picked the newspaper back up and read every line. The more she read, the colder her blood felt. Dr. Harper served as head of ophthalmology at St. Joseph Medical Center for 12 years, formerly taught at Columbia University, and was a senior advisor to the American Academy of Ophthalmology. He chose to donate his corneas after being diagnosed with untreatable retinal degeneration, on the condition that his eyes would go to someone young who could still see the world. Claire's hands shook as she murmured. I was that person. She couldn't believe it. Just then, Helen returned, holding a tray of fruit. Miss Claire. Are you all right? You look pale. Helen, did you know Mr. Julian used to be a doctor? Helen blinked. I'm not sure. I heard he was a nurse or maybe a doctor, but no one in this house ever talked about it. Claire clenched the newspaper. I received a corneal transplant 2 years ago. The donor listed in the file was Julian Harper. Helen gasped, dropping the tray. Oh my God, you mean Daniel's father? Claire nodded, her eyes beginning to redden. He donated his eyes, for me. Because I was his son's fiancée. Her hands were trembling uncontrollably now. The newspaper fell to the floor. She stood and rushed upstairs. Every step felt like it pressed down on a rising tide of guilt. She tore through drawers and cabinets, searching for her old medical files. In the thick folder, after layer upon layer of paperwork, she finally found the section marked Organ Donor Information. Donated organ, corneas, both eyes. Donor, Dr. Julian Harper. Date of donation, 11:27 a.m., February 11, 2019. Location, Cedars Sinai, operating room 3. She collapsed to the floor, burying her face in her hands. He knew the recipient was me. Her voice cracked into sobs. Half an hour later, Claire entered the living room, clutching the file and the newspaper. Lucy was lounging on the sofa, scrolling on her phone. "Lucy," Claire called. "What now? You look like you've seen a ghost. Do you know who Julian really is?" Lucy shrugged. "An old blind man. Used to work in a clinic. The one you were lucky to get rid of?" Claire stepped closer and placed the newspaper and file in front of her sister. "Read this." Lucy glanced at the headline, indifferent at first, then froze. What is this?" "He was one of the top ophthalmologists in the country. He's the one who donated the corneas that saved my vision. 2 years ago." Lucy's face drained of color. Her eyes widened. What? I remembered seeing his name in the donor file. Today someone sent this article. It's real. Lucy grabbed the file, flipping through the pages in disbelief. No way. He's poor, wears old clothes, and he's blind. Because of retinal degeneration, Claire said, voice trembling. He retired. Chose to go blind, to save me. He didn't tell anyone. Didn't ask for gratitude. He just disappeared after I recovered. Lucy stumbled backward like someone had slapped her. Why didn't he say anything? Claire looked at her sister, eyes glistening. Because he's a good man. Lucy's voice broke. I mocked him. You drove him out. You locked my father-in-law away like some disposable burden. Lucy collapsed into a chair, burying her head in her hands. Oh God, what have I done? Claire lifted her gaze, eyes resolute. You're not the only one who was wrong. Lucy looked up. I turned away too. I stayed silent. I laughed when he was humiliated. I lived as if he didn't exist. So, what do we do now? Claire stood, her voice steady. We go see him. We tell him the truth. We apologize. But, he's not seeing family. Then I won't go as a daughter-in-law. I'll go as the girl whose sight he gave back. Lucy swallowed hard. A tear slipped down her cheek. That night, Claire met with John, begging him to take her to Valley Hills retirement home. You're the only one Daniel still trusts. Please, take me there. I have to see Mr. Harper. John looked at her for a long moment. And for the first time in months, he saw something in her eyes that Daniel once loved: genuine sincerity. All right. But you need to be ready. He's shut everyone out. You might not be forgiven. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just need to kneel before him, even once. John nodded. He knew that tomorrow's sunrise would bring a new dawn for the Harper family. The next morning, a light rain fell over Boston. Droplets hit the pavement like they were washing away the heavy silence that lingered. A pale gray umbrella shielded Claire's face as she stood at the gate of Valley Hills retirement home, beside John, who wore a long brown coat. Claire clutched the handle of her bag, which held all her medical records, a printed copy of the Washington Post article, and a handwritten 3-page letter soaked with tears. For the first time since receiving her transplant, she felt like she was seeing with eyes that didn't belong to her. And for the first time, she felt grateful to see something truly valuable: justice. Are you sure he's still here? Claire asked softly. He's here, John nodded. Eric says he still goes to the garden every morning. Fingers tracing braille. Claire swallowed hard. I don't know what I'll say. Just tell the truth. Like you did with Daniel. Honesty doesn't need a script. The gate opened. Samuel Nolan was still on duty. He nodded to John, then looked at Claire. And you are? I'm Claire, she said, raising her chin. The woman Mr. Julian donated his eyes to. The one who used to be his daughter-in-law. Samuel froze for a moment, then nodded solemnly. He's in the back garden. I'll take you. The rear garden was a lush green space, with stone paths winding between lavender bushes. At the center, beneath an old olive tree, sat an elderly man with silver hair on a wooden bench. In his hands was a worn braille book, his fingers gently moving across the page. "Mr. Harper," Samuel said quietly. "Someone's here to see you." He didn't look up. "Is it Daniel?" "No. It's the girl, the one with your eyes." Julian's fingers stopped. There was a long silence. Then he closed the book and turned his face toward Claire. "It's you." Claire stepped forward, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped her umbrella. "Yes, it's me. Claire." Her voice was hoarse. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I came so late." Julian said nothing. He listened to her approaching footsteps, each one heavy with truth. Claire knelt down before him. She didn't care that the ground was wet. That her knees were soaked. That the mud stained her skirt. She took the newspaper, the medical file, and the handwritten letter from her bag, and laid them before him. "I don't deserve these eyes. I don't deserve to be your daughter-in-law. But I came here, to say thank you." A tear dropped onto his hand. Then another. "For 2 years, I lived without knowing who gave me the light to see. I looked at you without realizing. I was looking at the man who gave me the whole world." Julian reached out and gently touched her cheek. A soft, tired, but kind smile formed on his lips. "I never blamed you." Claire sobbed. "But I laughed while you were being humiliated. I stayed silent when they threw you out of the wedding. I was disgusted by a man who had lost his eyes, just so I could live the life I have now." "I know," Julian said calmly. "But I also knew you'd come." Why did you choose me?" "Because you were the one Daniel loved. I didn't know what the future would hold. But I knew, if you lived, Daniel would still have hope." Claire buried her head on his lap, sobbing like a child. Alan quietly turned away, his eyes reddened. That same afternoon, Daniel received a phone call from John. "Daniel, you should come to Brooklyn. Someone is waiting for you." "My father?" "And Claire." Daniel hung up, dropped everything he was doing, and rushed to the facility. When he arrived, Claire was pushing Julian's wheelchair along the stone path. A light mist clung to Julian's coat, but his smile shone brighter than the fading afternoon sky. Daniel walked over, stopping for a moment when he saw his father. "Dad." Julian turned toward the voice, still holding Claire's hand. "Daniel." Daniel ran forward, dropped to his knees, and held his father's hand tightly. The tears came instantly, and he couldn't stop them. "I'm sorry. I let them take you away. I left you alone all this time." "I wasn't alone," Julian smiled. "I had your light. And now, that light shines even brighter through Claire's eyes." Daniel looked at his wife, truly looked at her for the first time since all the anger and silence. "You." "I was wrong," Claire interrupted, her eyes red. "I didn't deserve you. But I want to make things right. Not for you but for him. The man who loved us with everything he had." Daniel embraced her, and the three of them, the blind father, the son, and the daughter-in-law, stood together in the garden, hands intertwined, as if they had rediscovered what mattered most, family. News of Dr. Julian Harper's true identity spread quickly. The Washington Post article was widely shared, this time with thousands of comments honoring and admiring him. No one called him the blind old man in a worn suit anymore. People called him the man who saw with his heart. Back at the Whitman mansion, Eleanor flew into a rage when she saw the name Harper on the evening news. Gerald said nothing. But Lucy completely broke down. 1 week later, Claire brought her father-in-law home to live with them in a small house in the suburbs of Boston, a new home she and Daniel had bought together, with no connection to the Whitmans. For the first time, everything belonged to them. On the first day Julian stepped inside, Claire gently helped him to sit by the window. "This is your home now. If you don't want to stay, I won't force you. But please, let me take care of you, with everything I have." "I don't need to be taken care of," he smiled. "Just hearing the two of you every day is enough." From that day on, Claire walked with him every morning in the nearby park. They didn't talk much. They just breathed together. Every step they took was a step toward healing. One afternoon, under a clear sky and gentle breeze, Daniel was reading in the garden when he received a message from Lucy. "I was wrong. I'm leaving the Whitman house. If it's okay. I'd like to apologize to him." Daniel didn't reply. He knew Lucy needed to find her own way. That evening, Julian spoke to the couple. "I won't live forever. But when my time comes, I want to be with you." Claire squeezed his hand. "No. Your time is just beginning." Julian smiled. He didn't need to see. Because he had already seen everything. A month later, at the park near their home, Claire and Julian sat under a tree. She looked up at the vast blue sky. The breeze played through her hair, and soft sunlight touched her eyes. "Did you know, my eyes used to feel empty. But ever since I began seeing with your light, I see things differently." "Differently how?" "I see my mistakes. And I see hope." Julian held his daughter-in-law's hand. "The eyes are yours. But the light comes from compassion." Claire smiled, a smile no longer burdened by pride. "I owe you my whole life." "No," he shook his head. "I owe you happiness." Daniel walked up from a distance, holding 2 cups of hot tea. They sat together, in the park, among the laughter of children, the rustle of leaves as if pain had never existed. And the sky was crystal clear. The story is a powerful reminder that a person's worth does not lie in appearances or social status, but in love, sacrifice, and the quiet dignity they carry in their heart. Don't judge too quickly before knowing the truth, because sometimes, the one we disregard may be the very one who gave us light. Live with gratitude. Admit your mistakes and make them right while you still can. Because only when we face our wrongs with sincerity, can love truly heal all wounds. Don't let silence become your final apology.
If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.